You've heard of secret islands for the ultra-rich, but what if there is a real village, hidden, guarded, and designed specifically to raise billionaire children? No media, no outsiders, and no coincidence. This is the hidden world where legacies are built before they ever wear a suit. First, we have to find it, and that's not easy. It's not on the map, but it's very real. The coordinates are never published, not in public registries, not in satellite-tagged databases, and definitely not in any travel brochure. But those who need to know do. Nestled somewhere between the Austrian Alps and a section of the Swiss border that's permanently off-limits due to environmental conservation, there's a stretch of land protected not just by nature, but by money. Quiet, steep, and flanked by pine forest so thick they swallow sound. From the outside, it looks like an untouched mountain village. Stone cottages, narrow roads, the occasional cattle shed, but past the first gate, yes, there is more than one, you'll find biometric scanners built into carved wooden posts. And plainclothes guards who don't carry radios because their earpieces are patched into a closed-loop satellite system. This isn't tradition, this is performance. The village is rumored to be funded by a private trust based in Liechtenstein, originally seeded by the estate of a European shipping dynasty. Its operating cost runs into the tens of millions annually. None of it comes from public funds. Every family that enters pays. And not just for admission, for silence. Each agreement includes a confidentiality clause, security retainer, and background clearance that rivals a military dossier. There are no permanent residents from the outside world, only instructors, specialists, and security personnel, rotated every 12 months to avoid attachment or exposure. Even supply deliveries are vetted 3 times, once at the base checkpoint, once at a decontamination tunnel, and once again upon entry by hand inspection. No detail is left to trust. Everything is designed to remain untouched by outside noise. The children here come from names you have never heard on purpose. Descendants of sovereign fund managers, heirs to oil conglomerates, the future chairs of private equity empires stretching across 3 continents. There is no red carpet here, no paparazzi, just the distant hum of wealth so dense it no longer needs to announce itself. No one inside asks how anyone got here. And no one leaves without being changed. Because this village wasn't made for comfort, it was made for control, for insulation, for preparation. And for those who call it home, even temporarily, it's not about hiding, it's about becoming untouchable. Let's talk about the parents, the kind who don't post family photos online. These aren't your average rich families, they're the ones who write checks that reshape economies. They come from everywhere, but their goals are identical. The father who built a billion-dollar blockchain platform in Singapore, the Saudi mother who sits on the board of a sovereign wealth fund, the Brazilian industrialist whose name hasn't hit the news in a decade because his family owns the paper, the Indian telecom magnate who never appears on rich lists but controls data infrastructure across South Asia. These are not people interested in press, they're interested in permanence. Their children don't get admitted through applications. They're invited, often through a discreet intermediary, usually a trusted family office or private banker with a long-standing relationship to the trust that oversees the village. Names are never exchanged directly. In most cases, the documents are signed by shell foundations registered in places like Nevis or Guernsey. The enrollment form doesn't list father or mother, it lists sponsor. The children arrive young, usually between 6 and 10. They don't come with entourages, one small suitcase, a false surname, and a staff member briefed to fade into the background. They don't need butlers or chefs, everything inside the village is handled by the system. The point isn't indulgence, it's control, because this isn't about luxury. These parents aren't chasing status, they already own it. What they want is insulation, from public life, from temptation, from weakness. Their children aren't being raised to inherit, they're being conditioned to manage legacies measured in trillions. One child's father owns a logistics empire stretching from Rotterdam to Qingdao. Another's grandfather is believed to be one of the top 3 private uranium traders in the world. These aren't public figures, you won't find them speaking at Davos or investing in startups, they're shadows behind entire industries. Their kids aren't being trained to launch apps, they're being prepared to stabilize empires during black swan events. This is generational wealth under siege management. The parents don't see the world as a marketplace, they see it as terrain. And they're raising generals. The curriculum, the security, the isolation, it's all part of the same blueprint. Build successors who won't just preserve wealth, but defend it. You won't find branded sweatshirts or group photos. There are no school plays or spring galas. No Instagram, no press releases, no graduation ceremonies, because this isn't a school, it's a factory for power. And the people who send their kids here, they don't want visibility, they want certainty. And in a world where that's almost impossible to guarantee, this village is as close as it gets. So, what's a regular day like for a child born into billions? It's not all polo and piano, this is more like a simulation of power. There is no bell to start the day, but routines are locked tighter than a military schedule. Wake up is at 5:45 a.m., not to alarm clocks, but to light shifts and soft tones based on sleep rhythm monitors. Each room is soundproofed, not for luxury but for control. Before breakfast, there is a 40-minute discipline block, usually martial arts or tactical coordination drills. Football is allowed occasionally, but more preferred jiu-jitsu, fencing, or Krav Maga. The idea isn't competition, it's precision. Every meal is regulated, not restricted by cost, restricted by purpose. No sugar, no caffeine, no ultra-processed anything. Each dish is tailored to optimize brain activity, blood flow, and gut function. Even hydration is tracked. There is no soda, no juice boxes, instead, biometric sensors worn on the wrist calculate fluid needs and alert instructors if a child is under-consuming water. It's not micromanagement, it's performance conditioning. By 7:30 a.m., learning begins. But not in rows of desks. Classrooms are modular. The subject matter isn't about acing exams, it's about engineering responses to chaos. Children debate currency manipulation strategies and simulate political negotiations. One room might be running a real-time crisis simulation where a student has to de-escalate a fictional trade war. Another might feature a mock boardroom where a 12-year-old is forced to defend a hostile takeover plan in front of instructors playing investors. Instead of cartoons during downtime, students play strategy games. Go! 5D chess variants, economic simulation platforms developed by actual hedge fund analysts. One app mimics real global markets with live feed scenarios, and kids must allocate funds based on shifting geopolitical risks. The top scorer last year was 9. Instructors play journalists, lawyers, and regulators. It's all designed to prepare these children for scrutiny they'll face without warning. There are no participation trophies, only debriefs and data. Socialization isn't accidental, it's engineered. Children are rotated through peer groups based on compatibility analysis. Personality data is tracked to ensure they learn leadership in all forms: alpha, collaborative, adaptive. Cliques aren't allowed to form naturally, left unchecked, they could fracture power later. Here, even friendships serve the legacy. There are no smartphones, no TikTok. The only screen time allowed is for training purposes. Calls with family happen under supervision, letters are handwritten, relationships with the outside world are kept distant, like a soldier kept off the front until they're ready. Because in this village, they're not just raising future CEOs, they're rehearsing succession. And every day is another rep in a lifelong simulation of control. These aren't just classes, they're rehearsals for empire building. At 9, they're discussing currency shifts. By 14, they're reading merger contracts. The curriculum in this village wasn't built by traditional educators, it was engineered by architects of power. Lessons don't revolve around grades, they revolve around decisions. Every session is designed to simulate the kind of judgment these children will need to make before they turn 30, because many of them won't have a choice. They're being groomed to inherit, manage, and protect more wealth than most nations control. tutors are flown in under strict confidentiality agreements. Most are retired consultants from McKinsey, economists from Ivy League institutions, or former professors from Oxford and Cambridge who now operate exclusively in private. One language instructor used to brief UN ambassadors. Another, a finance mentor, helped write internal risk models for a hedge fund that once moved $20 billion in a day. The children are taught to negotiate contracts, understand the legal frameworks of multiple jurisdictions, and analyze market behavior. A 10-year-old here could tell you how shadow banking works in Hong Kong or why energy futures in Dubai move on Gulf weather reports. They don't just read business headlines, they learn how to write the events that will cause them. Guest lecturers aren't motivational speakers, they're ex-diplomats, retired intelligence analysts, venture capitalists from Singapore, and former central bank advisors. They come for a day, sometimes a week, and leave without a trace. Their names are never published. Their advice is recorded only in memory. Language is non-negotiable. By 12, fluency in 3 languages is expected. English, of course, but also Mandarin, Arabic, Russian, or Hindi, depending on the geopolitical weight of the family's investments. The goal isn't just communication, it's perception. Understanding culture and nuance is a survival skill when you control global supply chains or sit at oil negotiation tables. But it's not just academic, they learn to code, not for apps but for systems. Cybersecurity is drilled like math. They're taught how to protect networks, encrypt sensitive communications, and detect digital threats. Every child undergoes simulated cyber attacks. One module replicates a full-scale leak scenario. Social, financial, internal data. And the student must contain the fallout in real time. Then comes survival. They train for evacuation scenarios, wilderness survival, and remote medical procedures. Not because they'll need it every day, but because when things go wrong in their world, they go very wrong. They're taught to be self-sufficient in every condition, from political instability to natural disasters. There is a mock border crossing drill, a bunker protocol test, an off-grid communication training day. Because the people behind this village don't believe in luck, they believe in preparation. The education system here isn't about creating scholars, it's about forging leaders, protectors, and survivors. People who can disappear and reappear stronger. People who can take a crumbling empire and rebuild it before anyone knows it fell. Nothing leaks from the village, and that's intentional. Privacy isn't a perk here, it's mandatory. The moment a child enters, their digital footprint stops. No phones, no social media, no contact with the outside world unless it's passed through an internal encrypted relay system monitored by security-grade AI. Messages in and out are scanned not just for safety, but for metadata patterns. Anything that could trace location, identity, or relationships is scrubbed. Every child uses a pseudonym. Real names are never spoken aloud, not even by staff. The entire village is ringed by facial recognition checkpoints, disguised as traditional stone archways. Entry requires a triple confirmation system, retinal scan, temperature signature, and gait analysis. Even drones can't fly overhead. The airspace is locked under a private aviation agreement backed by a sovereign security contract with a nearby country. No satellites strike this village without permission. It doesn't exist on any public navigation system. Try to locate it and you'll find a forestry zone tagged restricted for ecological protection. Parents don't just enroll, they commit. Each signs an NDA longer than most corporate acquisition contracts. Breaching it triggers immediate expulsion. The deposit alone starts at $5 million, not including the annual operating fee. That money doesn't just fund education, it pays for silence. It pays for loyalty. Even the staff. Teachers, trainers, chefs, medical teams are on fixed one-year rotations. They arrive under aliases, live within the village, and leave with zero contact allowed post-exit. There is no alumni network, no goodbye parties. Once your term is up, you disappear. All devices are wiped and replaced, memory becomes the only archive. Security isn't reactive here, it's proactive. Before any event, even a staged negotiation or birthday dinner, the perimeter is swept. Audio devices are scanned, rooms are vacuum sealed with signal jammers that activate once the door locks. If a pen is brought in with a mic, it's flagged and neutralized. Even gift packages from parents are scanned, unwrapped by security, then rewrapped and handed over. Trust is never assumed. Never. One rumor tells of a breach. Years ago, a staffer tried to document the experience, thinking he could write a memoir. Within a week, the publisher pulled the deal, the draft disappeared, and the man left public life altogether. The entire village operates like a sovereign nation without a flag. A place where the most powerful families in the world send their children not to be hidden but to be hardened. And in a world driven by exposure, what they're learning is this: real control begins where visibility ends. And here, the light never touches what matters most. Let's get honest, why go to this extreme? Because wealth doesn't protect itself, people do. At this level of wealth, danger isn't hypothetical, it's generational. Every child in this village carries a name or a future asset that could make them a target. Some are heirs to mineral contracts locked into global trade routes. Others are future signatories in sovereign wealth funds. These kids aren't just children, they're leverage. That's why this village exists. To neutralize vulnerability before it even surfaces. This place isn't about hiding rich kids, it's about creating capable ones. The world doesn't need another yacht-hopping heir, it needs someone who can step into a crisis with billions at stake and not panic. Spoiled children become soft targets, but trained heirs, those raised in strategy, restraint, and surveillance awareness, become unshakable. If you could raise your kids in a place like this, would you? Or does it cross a line? Leave your thoughts in the comments.